Golden Age Gardening, year-round garden color with evergreen perennials. Your garden doesn't have to look dead and empty when winter arrives. In fact, the right plants can make your outdoor space look absolutely stunning even when everything else is frozen over. I'm William Scott from Golden Age Gardening, and I'm here to share something that completely changed how I think about garden design. By adding just a handful of the right perennials to your beds, you can maintain vibrant color from January through December, no matter where you live. Before we dive deeper into this, if you're passionate about year-round garden beauty, please hit that subscribe button. We release new gardening strategies every single week. Also, like this video and drop a comment below telling me what your favorite winter plant is. Let's get started. Understanding what evergreen perennials really are. When we talk about evergreen perennials, we're discussing plants that maintain their color and foliage throughout the dormant season. For those of us in the northern regions of the world, this means they stay green or colorful during winter months when most gardens look rather dreary. Now, the word evergreen often makes people picture evergreen shrubs or those tall Christmas trees you see during the holidays. But here's what most gardeners don't realize. Evergreen perennials can be just as colorful and interesting as any shrub, and they take up far less space in your garden beds. Think about the variety available. You can find perennials with blue-tinted foliage, gray-colored leaves, plants with burgundy tones, and even varieties that shift colors as temperatures drop throughout the season. This spectrum of color transforms your winter landscape from something you endure to something you actually look forward to viewing from your window. Last year, I planted a specific bed combining several evergreen perennials, including lavender and other flowering varieties. Even in early March, after several days of cold rain, these plants maintained their structural integrity and color. Some showed some minor browning on their edges, which is completely natural, but overall they provided the garden with depth, interest, and that crucial winter color that makes such a difference psychologically when you're stuck inside during cold months. The reality. Are evergreen perennials actually evergreen all winter long? Here's where I need to be honest with you. The answer to whether evergreen perennials stay truly evergreen all winter long is both yes and no. I understand that's not the definitive answer you might want, but it's the most accurate one I can give you. The truth is that climate patterns keep changing. What remains evergreen in one hardiness zone might behave differently just a few miles away. If you live on the border between two different zones, you'll especially notice this variation. In my own garden, here in Zone 7, right in southern New Jersey, many plants maintain their foliage beautifully. They might show some browning on the leaf edges, and spent flower stems will naturally deteriorate, but the core plant remains green and attractive. However, this same plant in a colder zone 3 or 4 might lose all its leaves and appear dormant for the entire winter season. Let's talk about the Hellebores for a moment. These are reliably evergreen in just about every hardiness zone. When their leaves begin to look brown and tattered, which does happen, that timing works perfectly for gardeners. You simply remove those damaged leaves, and what appears underneath is the incredible winter and early spring flowers. The old leaves actually protected those blooms while they were developing. The key point to remember is this: even if evergreen perennials only remain semi-evergreen in your particular climate right now, that could change in years to come. Different weather patterns mean different plant behavior. Some years you might get a mild winter where plants stay greener longer. Other years you might get an unexpected cold snap. The important thing is that you're working with nature, not against it. Building your winter garden strategy. Before we discuss specific plants, let me explain why building with evergreen perennials matters so much. When you rely only on deciduous plants, those that lose all their leaves in fall, your garden beds look sparse and uninviting during the coldest months. This can genuinely affect your mood during the darker seasons. But add some evergreen perennials, and suddenly you have color, texture, and interest right there outside your window. The added benefit is exceptional. When a snowstorm arrives and you get that unexpected blanket of snow covering your garden, these evergreen plants retain their beauty underneath. When the snow melts, your color is still there waiting for you. It gives you something to look forward to during the winter months, and it builds anticipation for spring. Consider mixing evergreen perennials with your existing shrubs and trees. You don't need to have only large evergreen shrubs and trees to have winter color. Lower-growing perennials can fill in the gaps, create layering, and add visual excitement that taller plants alone cannot provide. Plant number 1, Hellebores, the winter bloomer. I've genuinely fallen in love with Hellebores, and I've mentioned them in several videos on this channel. These plants are absolute champions for winter gardens. Here's what makes them so special. Hellebores begin blooming in early spring if you're in a colder zone, but in warmer regions, they actually bloom during the winter months. Right now, in mid-January on my own property, I have Hellebores in full bloom. I've been enjoying their flowers for several weeks already. The variety available is honestly overwhelming, in the best way possible. There are hundreds of different varieties to choose from. You can find them in single solid colors or in multicolored patterns. Some have simple, open flowers, while others display ruffled, complex blooms. You can select varieties that face upward toward the sky or those that nod downward. Some gardeners prefer varieties that seed themselves around the garden, creating a natural, established look, while others choose sterile varieties that won't spread. If you want more detailed information about caring for Hellebores and how to prune them properly, I'll share a helpful video link that covers this topic thoroughly. What I love most about Hellebores is that they produce flowers that genuinely make your heart leap when you spot them in the early part of the year. After months of winter, seeing those first Hellebore blooms is pure magic. These plants are hardy in zones 5 through 9. They tolerate anywhere from mostly sunny conditions to complete shade, depending on which specific variety you're growing. They're also quite resistant to deer and rabbit damage, which makes them practical for many gardens. Plant number 2, Bergenia, heartleaf Bergenia, or by the amusing common name, piggy squeak. This name comes from something interesting. When you rub the leaves together after rain, they supposedly make a sound like a pig squeaking. I haven't personally tested this yet, but it's so charming that I'm planning to purchase one just to experience it myself. I'm enough of a kid at heart that I want to see what happens. Beyond the fun factor, Bergenia is a genuinely beautiful evergreen perennial. It flowers during late winter, moving into early spring, and the timing depends on your specific zone. The flowers come in white, pink, or lavender shades, with some varieties offering pale, subtle tones, while others display more vibrant colors. The leaves are large and waxy, which is part of what makes this plant visually striking. In many varieties, these leaves remain green throughout the season, but here's something cool. Some varieties actually change color as temperatures drop. The foliage can shift into red or burgundy tones, adding another layer of seasonal interest. Keep in mind that not every Bergenia variety is evergreen, so check your plant tags carefully when purchasing. Bergenia typically grows 12 to 24 inches tall. Because of this more compact size, many gardeners use it as a ground cover, but it works equally well as a perennial filler between other flowering plants or as an edging plant along garden beds. This plant is hardy in zones 3 through 8. It adapts to full sun, partial shade, or complete shade depending on the variety, so check those plant tags. Bergenia shows strong resistance to deer and rabbit damage as well. Plant number 3, creeping phlox, spring phlox. Number 3 on our list is creeping phlox, also called spring phlox. This evergreen ground cover is genuinely gorgeous when it flowers in spring. The blooms seem to glow with inner light regardless of which color or variety you're looking at. The needle-like foliage provides a beautiful green color even during dormant seasons. Gardeners commonly use creeping phlox on slopes, cascading down over rock walls, or as an edging plant running along the front of garden beds. The small flowers are star-shaped, and the color palette includes soft pinks, pale lilac, white, and more dramatic shades like magenta, periwinkle, and lavender.
Here's something useful. Different varieties of creeping phlox bloom at different times during spring. Some start flowering earlier than others. Additionally, some varieties tolerate drier soil conditions better than others. If aggressive spreading concerns you, look for the newer hybrid varieties as they spread more slowly than older traditional varieties. I grew up with creeping phlox in my parents' garden, and it was one of my childhood favorites. These days, every single spring when I see someone else's creeping phlox in full bloom, I think to myself, why don't I have this in my garden? It's become a funny, running thought. I've decided this year I'm ordering some to plant because I refuse to go through another spring feeling that regret. Creeping phlox is hardy in zones 3 through 9. It requires full sun to thrive. This is another plant that shows strong resistance to deer and rabbit damage, making it reliable in many garden situations.
Plant number 4 is Candytuft, otherwise known as Iberis. This evergreen perennial is wonderful because in spring, it becomes absolutely blanketed with tiny white flowers. When in bloom, it creates a sea of white that spreads across your garden bed like a living snowdrift. What's even better, certain varieties of Candytuft bloom again in fall, giving you a second show of flowers when many other plants are winding down for the season. Outside of blooming periods, Candytuft displays a beautiful deep green color. The maintenance requirement is minimal, really just one task annually. After the plant finishes blooming in late spring, you gently shear back the foliage. This keeps the plant compact and encourages fuller growth the following season. Candytuft is hardy in zones 3 through 9. It needs full sun and consistent moisture to perform best. Like our previous plants, it resists deer and rabbit damage effectively. Plant number 5, Ajuga, also called carpet bugle or bugle weed. The word weed in the name is intentional. In some locations, particularly in southern regions, Ajuga spreads quite aggressively and can become invasive. However, if you want to establish an evergreen carpet quickly, Ajuga is an excellent choice. I have Ajuga planted around the base of my Fothergilla shrubs in my front garden. Here's why this works so well. Rabbits absolutely love eating Fothergilla plants. They don't like Ajuga though. This combination has effectively solved my rabbit problem because the rabbits don't want to eat the Ajuga to reach the Fothergilla. Ajuga doesn't just come in one color option. The variety is impressive. You can find dark green varieties, burgundy options, and lush green types. Many varieties display beautiful veining patterns on the leaves as well. One particularly striking variety is called Ajuga Burgundy Glow. This variety has leaves that combine cream and green coloring with hints of pink throughout. Another favorite is Ajuga Chocolate Chip, which features dark leaves that look like a combination of chocolate brown and dark green. I planted the chocolate chip variety around my Fothergilla. Ajuga blooms during mid to late spring, depending on your gardening zone. The flowers display pretty shades of pink, purple, or blue. This plant is hardy in zones 3 through 9. But here's an important detail. It remains evergreen in zones 6 through 9. In colder zones, it might not maintain its foliage through the entire winter. Ajuga tolerates full sun through full shade. It's completely resistant to deer and rabbit damage. On that note, if you've planted anything from this list and found that deer or rabbits have damaged plants supposedly resistant to them, please comment below. I'm actively tracking which plants prove truly resistant for different gardeners across different regions. Your feedback helps everyone in our community. The next 3 plants I want to discuss, Tiarella, Heuchera, and Heucherella, are related to each other, though they have some important differences worth understanding. Let's examine each one individually. Number 6 is Tiarella, commonly called foam flower. This plant functions as more of a ground cover since it spreads via underground runners over time. The additional plants that emerge from these runners can easily be dug up and transplanted elsewhere, which is actually convenient if you want to expand plantings or share with gardening friends. The heart-shaped leaves of Tiarella vary dramatically by variety. Some are very dark, while others are bright and vibrant. What makes each variety truly interesting is the combination of base color
and the detailed veining patterns on each leaf. These patterns create a two-color effect that's visually striking. In spring, Tiarella produces spikes of flowers that look like bottle brushes. These flowers come in soft colors like cream or pale pink, and they rise upward from the foliage. If you enjoy shade gardening, Tiarella is perfect for you. These plants prefer shade or dappled sunlight. Direct sun for extended periods can stress them. Tiarella loves moisture, but it's important to distinguish this from sitting in waterlogged soil. The soil should be consistently moist, but well-draining. Another useful note, Tiarella handles humidity and heat better than Heuchera, which we'll discuss next. Tiarella is hardy in zones 3 through 9. It tolerates partial sun through full shade. According to standard references, it's deer and rabbit resistant, but I need to be honest, I've heard from other gardeners who've had these plants eaten despite their reputation for resistance. That's worth noting as you plan. Number 7 is Heuchera, commonly called coral bells. This plant can either be fully evergreen or semi-evergreen depending on your hardiness zone. Heuchera plants are prized more for their foliage than for their flowers, which is why they're so popular. The color variety available is truly impressive. You can find red foliage varieties, peach-domed leaves, green options, purple varieties, and combinations thereof. It seems like breeders introduce new color varieties every single year. The leaves are maple-shaped and typically feature veining in contrasting colors that create a wonderful two-color effect. Some varieties even have riffled edges on the leaves. One particularly striking variety is called Heuchera Burgundy Glow. This variety has leaves that combine cream and green coloring with hints of pink throughout. Another favorite is Heuchera Chocolate Chip, which features dark leaves that look like a combination of chocolate brown and dark green. I planted the chocolate chip variety around my Fothergilla. Heuchera blooms during mid to late spring, depending on the specific variety and your zone. The flowers are small and appear on thin stems that rise well above the foliage. While the flowers are nice, it's really the foliage that makes gardeners excited about these plants. Here's important growing information. Heuchera doesn't tolerate heavy clay soil well. It also struggles in overly moist conditions. Make sure your soil drains well if you're planting Heuchera.
This plant is hardy in zones 4 through 9. It prefers partial or complete shade. Heuchera is generally deer-resistant, though I've heard plenty of gardening stories about deer eating them. It's possibly resistant to rabbits too, but many gardeners have reported rabbit damage to their Heuchera plants. That's partly why I don't have them growing in my own garden. The rabbit damage has been a concern in my area. Plant number 8, Heucherella, foamy bells. Number 8 is Heucherella, sometimes called foamy bells. This plant is actually a cross between Heuchera and Tiarella, the two plants we just discussed. Because of this hybrid nature, Heucherella combines some of the best qualities of both parents. What's especially useful about Heucherella is its adaptability. This plant handles temperature variations well, performing nicely in northern gardens and equally well in the heat and humidity of southern gardens. It also tolerates moisture much better than Heuchera does. While Heuchera typically requires shade, Heucherella can handle partial sun, which gives you more planting flexibility. Like its Heuchera parent, Heucherella is grown primarily for its foliage. The leaves show the same maple-like characteristics as Heuchera, with plenty of color varieties available and wonderful veining patterns in contrasting colors. The foliage can be ruffled at the edges as well. The flowers appear in late spring through early summer. They rise above the colorful foliage and create a striking visual display. Heucherella is hardy in zones 4 through 9. It performs well in half-sun, half-shade conditions and can also tolerate full shade. According to standard information, Heucherella is supposedly deer and rabbit resistant, but I've heard numerous stories from other gardeners indicating that these plants have been eaten by both animals, so buyer beware when planting these. Plant number 9, Dianthus, commonly called pinks. This represents an enormous family of plants that includes both annual and perennial varieties. Here's the crucial point. Not all Dianthus perennials are evergreen. You need to check your plant takes carefully
to ensure you're getting an evergreen variety. When you do find an evergreen version, you've got year-round garden color, which is wonderful. As I showed earlier in our discussion, the foliage of evergreen Dianthus displays primarily a blue-green color. The plant itself grows very low to the ground. This makes it absolutely perfect for planting in front of your garden beds. You can place it in front of shrubs, in front of flowering perennials, or anywhere you need low-growing, year-round interest. It works great everywhere you try it. The flowers can appear in two ways depending on the variety. Some Dianthus varieties produce flowers on short stems that barely rise above the foliage, creating a low, compact flowering display. Other varieties send up longer stems with flowers positioned well above the leaves. The foliage itself shows variety too. Some types have grass-like foliage that resembles blue-green ornamental grass, while others feature tiny leaves and thin stems. Dianthus flowers come in many solid colors and multicolored patterns. You can find them in various shades of pink, purple, red, white, and even pale yellow, which I find particularly attractive. This plant is a long bloomer. It typically starts blooming in mid-spring and continues well into summer. In some gardening zones, Dianthus blooms continue throughout summer and even into fall. Dianthus is hardy in zones 5 through 9. It requires full sun to thrive. Dianthus is considered deer-resistant and rabbit-resistant. However, I need to tell you about a video I filmed recently as a short clip. In this video, a rabbit ate Dianthus flowers right in front of me while I was actively filming. It's definitely worth watching because it shows that rabbit resistance isn't always guaranteed. That particular rabbit clearly had other opinions about Dianthus than what the books say. Plant number 10, lavender. There are so many varieties and hybrids available in the lavender world that you have tremendous flexibility. You can find compact varieties or tall ones. You can select deeper lavender colors or pale lilac. There are even pink varieties available. Many of these varieties are evergreen or what we call evergray. They maintain their gray-green foliage year-round. When you're shopping for lavender, check those plant tags to ensure you're getting an evergreen variety for maximum winter interest. For my own gardens, I chose lavender phenomenal specifically because I get to enjoy its blue-gray foliage color all year long. Even when it shifts more toward the evergray phase during winter, it still provides wonderful visual interest. There's also a newer variety from the same breeder called Lavender Sensational. This variety is also evergreen but grows shorter in height while producing larger flowers. Both options are excellent. Lavender in general is hardy in zones 5 through 9. It requires full sun to thrive. Lavender is considered deer and rabbit resistant.
Conclusion and final thoughts. Now it's your turn to contribute to our growing gardening community. Drop a comment below telling me which evergreen perennials you're already growing in your garden. I'd absolutely love to hear about your favorites and your experiences with these plants. Also, if you haven't already, please subscribe to Golden Age Gardening. We release new gardening strategies and tips weekly. Share this video with anyone you know who loves gardening or wants to add more winter interest to their landscape. Your garden doesn't have to look barren and gray all winter long. By incorporating just a few evergreen perennials alongside your existing plants, you can create a garden that brings you joy even during the coldest, darkest months of the year. These plants provide color, structure, and that crucial psychological boost that comes from seeing beauty outside your window when everything else seems dormant. Whether you choose Hellebores for their early spring blooms, Dianthus for its year-round blue-green foliage, lavender for its aromatic gray tones, or any of the other wonderful options we've discussed today, you're making an investment in your garden's long-term visual appeal. Until next time, keep growing, keep experimenting, and keep making your garden more beautiful with every passing season. Happy gardening from everyone here at Golden Age Gardening.